thing, but it looks like it kind of dealing with me, you know, kind of thing. Amazing. What do you say? It depends.
Yeah, it depends. That's what I just know. But see, the thing is, because we don't really think about the future. Because that's our problem in the black people. We don't think about the future, right? About all this now. So he knows that he won't live to the but he thinks about his family and his family's family. We don't think like that. That's that's bad for give it to me.
But I think for musicians as well, when they start and so on, you know, you can't think how big it's going to be. You can't.
No, well, think about it. Like me, I've been around so many. I've seen people this way, and when they pass me going in, they pass me coming back, and I've been right in the level.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Well, thank you for first of all showing up for yourselves. This is our launch of our how-to series here with Memphis Slim Collaboratory, and we are so thankful to have the amazing Alandis Brassel Esquire on this panel discussion, or not really a panel discussion, but more of a discussion. I remind you that this is a Q&A, so if you do have questions, I know you're watching through YouTube. If you have questions, go ahead and put those into the comments and we can address them, as they go, as they come in. And so be sure to put those in, also including your information and all of that good stuff as well. So we can make sure that anything that you may want to get out of this discussion tonight is addressed. And hopefully we can address a lot of the questions that you may have. So, of course, over the past couple of weeks, we have been inundated, with, so many different things, whether it's music publishing, discussions, arguments, who owns what song, who has the right to do this, who's making money, who's not making money, why they aren't making money, and all of these good things, and bad things in a sense. And so this was perfect alignment in the sense that we wanted to really kick off the seminar with a quick discussion and a lesson on music publishing and copyrights and what your rights are as an artist. So again, tonight we do have Mr. Alandis Brassel, who I am going to be bringing up to the screen. But before I bring him up, a lot of you all are members or may not be members, or or just haven't been back yet. But I wanted to make sure that you all knew Akira, who I am going to bring up to the screen now. She is our program coordinator for Slim House. And so if you get any type of calls or emails, she is the person that is actually reaching out to you all to either get you back acclimated into the system, in the membership system somehow. So if you are not a member or currently not a member or have not renewed, go ahead and take the time out to email Akira. Her email is akira@memphisSlimHouse.org. And I'll let her say something if she wants to. I'm not sure if she actually wants to talk today, but if you want to say a little bit of something just to introduce yourself, Akira, that'd be great.
Yeah, so she already introduced me. My name is Akira. A lot of the new members and a lot of the current members, you've either spoken to me or seen me. Any of your membership questions, or if you have any questions about what we do, about what we can do, how we can help you, you can just give me a call or shoot me an email. I'm willing to answer any and everything. And if you have any questions about the membership, that's what I'm here for. So it's going to be an exciting workshop. So I'm glad you all are here.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Akira. And I saw the note where it said, please put email into the chat. And that is happening right now as we speak. So you should see that in the chat. So definitely go ahead and hit Akira up. So like I said, we have an amazing, overall amazing person, knowledgeable person. Alandis Brassel, what all can I say about him? He does so many different things, wears so many different hats, very, very much like myself, all within music, and is extremely knowledgeable of the subject at hand for tonight. Not only is he the music industry instructor at University of Memphis, he also has his own individual law practice, and like I said, does so many things, has his hands in so many aspects of the music business that I'll let him tell you a little bit more about. But I would like to go ahead and again introduce Mr. Alandis Brassel Esquire. So here it is.
Hey, how you doing? Can everybody hear me? So yeah, thank you for the introduction. So again, my name is Alandis Brassel. I am the assistant music business professor at the University of Memphis. I'm also an entertainment attorney. So I have a practice through a law firm called Scale Law Firm. We're what's called a distributed services firm, which is a fancy way for saying we're virtual. We don't have any offices, but we do have attorneys across the nation. I am the lone music attorney there. Been practicing since 2015, and have deep roots in Memphis. Wasn't born there, but all my family's from Memphis, so I have some family in the Memphis music scene as well. So yeah, I'm really excited about being here and being able to work with artists, being able to work with the business. So good to see Akira is at the collaboratory. So she is an alum of the music business program. So good to see her doing her thing. But yeah, I'm here tonight just to answer any questions y'all have about copyright, about songwriting, about publishing. And I will start off just how I start off. And I don't know if Akira would be able to actually fill in here. I would hope she would, but start off by saying the one thing that I tell anybody I'm teaching about copyright: the past tense to copyright is copyrighted and not copywritten. So if you're ever talking to somebody and you're asking if your stuff is protected by copyright, you want to ask if it's copyrighted, not copywritten. It's just a pet peeve of mine. And like a light way I like to open up any conversation about copyright. Another kind of basic thing, and I guess I know this is like a free-flowing conversation, so any questions that come in, happy to answer them. But just a basic starting point. There are two types of copyright when we're dealing with music. Okay, there's the copyright on the sound recording, which is like the actual performance, and then there's the copyright on the underlying composition, right, which is what we generally refer to as publishing. So there are different rights that go along with each copyright. With the sound recording copyright, that's generally owned by the record label. If you're an independent artist, that means that you are the person who owns the sound recording, right? And then if you are with the music composition, that's generally owned by the publishers or the songwriters if you're like an independent songwriter. So that's generally like the starting point, right? The creators go in, kind of owning everything. And then the way you make money off of that copyright is by licensing that off or by selling it off to different people. But you just have to make sure that you know who owns it, right? So that how you can license it off, how you can sell it, the different ways you can make money from it. So with that, Tanya, I don't know, did you have any like initial questions to start off with, or am I just kind of going from, you just want me to kind of take it from there? How do you copyright your music? All right, cool. So copyrighting your music is really straightforward. Again, since there are two copyrights, you have to know, kind of what to file. So you go online, the website is, you just go to copyright.gov. And if you go to copyright.gov, there'll be like a registration tab. Then you'll go to register your work and it'll get you into a registration portal. Okay. Copywriting is as simple as filling out there's one basic application now to fill out online. So there's one basic application to fill out online. You fill out the information with who owns the work. You put in the name of the work. They call it a work in the Copyright Office. So who owns the music? You put in the contact information, and then you submit that along with the actual registration fee. The registration fee, if there's one author, And if the author, who was the person who made it, is the same person who's claiming the copyright, which in most cases, is the case with independent artists. If it's one work and if it's not for hire, right, which means that this isn't something that is considered a work for hire where somebody hired you to do this and then they own it, then it costs $45 to file it electronically. Okay. Anything else with the standard application is generally $65 to register online. You can also register your works with paper forms. So if you're doing a song, it would be the form PA. If you're doing a sound recording of the actual master, it would be form SR. That's $125 per application to use to register. All right. But to register, it's as simple as going to copyright.gov and going to the registration tab, going to the registration portal, filling out the application and getting that done. Now, there are like some caveats with that, right? And there are also kind of some benefits you can take care of or you can take advantage of. If you own the sound recording, so if generally, again, independent artists, if you own both the sound recording and the publishing to all the songs, you can actually register all of those under one application and save yourself some money. And you would register it under the standard, like sound recording under the standard electronic application. You can list everything, you list all the sound recordings, and then you would also, just say that you own those songs as well, and you'll get a copyright registration certificate saying that you own both. But say if you are a band or something like that, or if you're an artist and you work with other songwriters, right? For each song that has a different songwriter, you do, or for each set of songs that has a different songwriter, you do have to pay a different fee. So look at Rico's rants to your question, is that fee per song? Not necessarily. So if you own like all the songs and if you own all the sound recordings, you can do that under one application. Where it gets tricky is like if you're doing different collaborations. So if you have co-writers on different songs, you can't register those songs under the same copyright application, right? You have to do those under separate applications. So yeah, that's kind of how that works. And I hope that answers that question. The next question is, can you register about 10 to 12 songs at one time? The answer to that is it depends. All right. So if the songs are what they call published, right? So if they've been put out into the world, right? If they've been released already, you have like a very short amount of time that you can actually register those under one app, under the same application. And it can be, I believe it's up to, it actually just changed. But it's generally the answer is yes, as long as they have the same authors, right? You can register 10 to 12 songs at a time as long as they have the same authors. If they have more than one author, then you can't do it. You got to do separate applications. All right. Let's see. If you're the singer and the writer, but you've worked with a musician on the music, how should it all be split? That's a great question. The answer is that's up to you, right? So if you're a singer and a writer, but you work with a musician on the music, you can approach it a couple of different ways, right? You can look at it and say, you're the songwriter. Like we actually just did a project right now where, the songs are already written when folks got into the sessions, right? She hired musicians. So the song was written, the melody was there, but maybe the musician contributed some different parts. You can either pay them a flat fee, right? Or you can split it, and you can split it however you want to. There are a couple of different ways to do it. You can do it so that you consider the music being half of the copyright in the song and the lyrics being half of the copyright in the song. So Candace, say if you wrote all the lyrics and you wrote some of the music, you might say, well, I get 50% because I wrote the lyrics, and then you might split the if you consider the musician like an actual songwriter, right? You could split that with them and say, hey, well, since we worked on the music half and half, then I'll get 25 because I did the music, and then Candace, you'll get 25 because you did the music, and then the musician will get 25% or whatever because they did the music. So it's really up to you with it's really up to you, I guess, in how long and how you want to be I guess how you want to be credited. But you can do that a lot of different ways. You can also, is that musician a producer? You can give them points on the sound recording side, so you can give them a percentage of that. It's really up to you. But the big thing is you want to make sure that you deal with it up front and know that you can do it a whole bunch of different ways, but you just need to figure out up front how you want to do it and get it in writing. And that's the easiest way to handle it. All right, the Miss Jackie Show. How does copyright work when purchasing beats? All right, I'm gonna tell y'all this. The first answer to most of my questions today is gonna, or my first answer to most of y'all's questions today is gonna be it depends, right? So again, with this, it depends. With copyright, when you're purchasing beats, if you're buying them outright, or if you're buying them outright, oftentimes the producer or the person who makes the beat is still participating in the publishing, right? And if that's the case, it could work the same way I described before, where they did the music, so they get half of the publishing, and then if it's purchasing beats, often we're dealing with like hip hop and rap, sometimes R&B, but if it's the lyricist will get half of the money or half of the publishing as well. So the copyright is owned half and half. The other part is, like, a lot of folks use like beats or use websites like BeatStars, or they're using like United Masters, like the producers portal or whatever, to get beats, and they're like, I guess, like leasing beats, which is really just like licensing beats. And in that case, you really have to pay attention to whatever the contract says, whatever that license says, because a lot of times that person is just getting like a license. The producer will still own the beat, and that person is just getting a license to use that beat for a limited amount of streams or for a limited amount of like purposes. Like, they can use it for a recording, but they can't license it out for like for that to be used on television or film, which is called synchronization licensing or sync licensing, and they won't be able to use it for that. So copyright works generally, the copyright is split between the person who made the beat and then whoever else worked on the song. By law, so outside of like contract, by law, by statute, whoever contributes to a song or whoever contributes to a recording owns that recording equally, right? Now, that's what the law says. What generally happens is industry practice and like contracts kind of dictate who owns what. So generally, the industry practice is for either everybody to split it equally. So like sometimes, like in Nashville, right? They say it's a word for a third. So if you're in the room and you contributed one word, or you contributed, to the music or whatever, whoever's in the room, they divide that equally, right? That's one way to look at it. So you just take however many people contributed and just divide that equally. The other way to do it is to split it 50% lyrics, 50% go to the music. And then if there are 3 people who worked on the music, those 3 people split that 50% for the music equally. And then if there are 4 people who worked on the lyrics, those 4 people split the 50% on the lyrics, like that same way. So I hope that answered that question. How long does it take for your song to be copyrighted before you go to distribute your songs on platforms? And I see that Tiger there, so I'm assuming you're a Memphis Tiger. So go Tigers, go. How long does it take for your song to be copyrighted? It takes about a month and a half. If everything goes right, it takes about a month and a half, like, for you to actually get a registration certificate. But the thing with copyright is it's actually something that you actually own copyright as soon as you create something and put it and fix and do what they call fix it in a tangible medium. So as soon as you create something and record it, or you write it, right, or you notate it some way, you actually own like the copyright at that point. It's a matter of, so you can actually distribute it at that point, you own the copyright. Registration just gives you certain rights, so you can't sue anybody until you register it. You generally won't be able to license it, right, to somebody unless somebody else use it until you register it. But if you want to distribute your songs on platforms, like, you actually own the copyright at the moment you record it, the moment you write it down. It really is just you need to register it so that if somebody does infringe it or infringe upon your copyright, or which means, if they steal it, right, you want to be able to sue. You want to be able to get your attorney's fees back. And that's something that you have to have it registered in order to get your attorney's fees and to actually be able to sue. So that's how that works. What if you're a co-writer of a song and the other song is deceased? Are you able to grant permission for licensing? That is a great question. And the answer to that question is it depends on who has administration rights. So if you all have a songwriter, if you all have a songwriting agreement together, or if you all own it together, their ownership, like once somebody dies, their ownership generally passes down to their heirs. So that could be a spouse, or it could be like the spouse and the children. In a lot of cases now, like for folks who have like a lot of songs, they'll put that into a trust. So whoever is over their estate, or whoever is over their estate, or whoever is over like the trust or whatever, they have to get permission as well as you. Now, this is only for exclusive uses. For any non-exclusive uses, so like if a song is like already out there or something like that, and you're just letting somebody use it like on TV or something like that, it's going to be up to the company to see like what, it's going to be up to the company that's licensing it, because sometimes they'll want to see all interests sign off on something. Most of the time they will. But really, if it's a non-exclusive use, any one person who owns an interest in it can actually grant permission for licensing, but that person is responsible for making sure that the other people or the other writers get their money. So say a TV show reaches out to me, I co-wrote a song with Johnny. Johnny died, right? TV show comes to me and says, "Hey, can I use your song? We'll pay you $5,000 for it." Sure, you can use it. I can say, yes, you can use it. But then I have to make sure that Johnny's estate or Johnny's heirs get $2,500. I can't just keep the 500, or I can't keep the $5,000 all to myself. I have to split whatever portion. And the law actually says that. The law says anybody can license it if it's a non-exclusive use, but it's on the person who licensed it to give whatever is owed to the other people. So if the people that run the estate of a dead band member get a small estate probate, does that negate their control of the copyright? No, it does not. It does not negate it. And once you get into stuff like that, like, you need to make sure lawyers are involved with all of that. But it does not negate their control of the copyright. They might not know they have control of the copyright if they did a small estate probate. The small estate probate, and I can answer this because one thing that I do with musicians and one thing that I focus on is like estates for songwriters and things like that. I will tell you that they might have a small estate probate. They might not have, maybe they weren't supposed to do a small estate probate, but it doesn't necessarily negate their control of the copyright. They can still control that copyright, and they do really until they sign off on it. And if that copyright has been controlled without their knowledge, or if something has been licensed without their knowledge, they can go after it and try to get whatever money they're owed or all that. Where it gets the issue comes into when copyright expires, and then something falls into the public domain, or if a copyright for things that were pre the 70s or whatever, if there was a time where you could renew copyright. Right now, if you write a song, copyright is, or you have copyright in that song for the life of the author plus 70 years, right? And if more than one person wrote it, it's the life of the author plus 70 years after the last writer died, right? So I mean, like anytime within that time, unless they've sold off their interest or like to somebody else, like they still control the copyright. And then if they don't control it, then like whoever else wrote or whoever they sold the interest to, they'll control it at that point. What does it mean to have administration rights? To have administration rights means to have the right um, to license something out or to actually be able to what they call administer a copyright. So to license it out, to collect money, to pay people, all that, right? So administration rights are the rights that allow you to sign off on something. Now, what'll happen sometimes, like if you have like a publishing deal or something like that, a lot of times publishers will have administration rights. So they don't have to go back to the songwriter to say, hey, can we license this out every time somebody calls them, right? A publisher is going to want administration rights because they're going to want to be able to say, if somebody calls, they're going to want to say, yes, you can use it, right? So if that's the case, then when somebody has administration rights, when somebody comes to them and says, can I use it? Then they can just sign off on it. Something that's often recommended, especially with like a lot of these like sync houses, they'll really want to work with like, one stop, they call them one stops, right? Where they have the rights to administer both the sound recording copyright and the music publishing copyright. And the way that happens is when somebody signs on like to a publishing deal or when somebody signs on to a sync house, what they'll do is when they sign that contract, like for their music to be in that library, they'll actually in that contract give administration rights to the publisher or to the sync house. And that right there is them saying, you don't have to contact us every time somebody calls you all. Just if somebody wants it, just let them use it. And then there might be like a clause in there that says, if they want to use it in like a political, if somebody wants to use it in a political campaign, or if they want to use my music in an R-rated, NC-17 or X-rated movie, if they want to use it with personal hygiene products, or if they want to use it in any type of religious like setting or any religious like video or something like that, then you have to contact us. But other than that, the administration rights say you can sign off on it. We're cool with it. You can collect the money and then you can pay everybody. So that's what administration rights are. When releasing a cover song, how can you copyright your new release? Great question. If you're releasing a cover song and it's a true cover, okay? Now remember, if it's a true cover, not a when I say a true cover, not like a sample, you're not sampling something, or you're not doing an interpolation of a song, which means you've taken some elements of a song and like changed it around. If it's an actual true cover, to copyright your new release, all you have to do is copyright the sound recording, right? Because you're not getting any publishing because it's a cover. So all that money, all the publishing money is going to the songwriter, probably through like if you use like Harry Fox agency, or if you use a service like TuneCore or DistroKid and you've paid them to get the mechanical license. That's where the publishing is going. So what you'll do is you'll go to copyright.gov, you'll copyright the sound recording, and then you will actually disclaim like the actual music. So there's a spot for you to disclaim ownership of a particular element of what you're submitting, and you'll say, yeah, like I did not write the music or the lyrics to this. I'm only copyrighting the sound recording itself and not the composition. And then you'll have copyright on the sound recording. So you'll have copyright on the release, but not on the actual song. How do you publish your music as an indie artist? Great question. So I think that the first thing that we have to answer, right? The first thing we have to know is, what is music publishing? Okay. So music publishing is pretty much collecting money for your music, and exploiting your music, right? Which means, or as a songwriter, right? So if you're asking about how to publish your songs, because you publish songs, not sound recordings. So if you're looking at how to publish songs, you're looking at how do you collect your money, right? And then how do you exploit your songs to the point where people are using them? That's whether people are doing covers of them or people are using them in television and film. Or if you're an independent songwriter and you are not like an artist, right? Then it's how do you get your music out to other people so that they can record them? All right. The answer to that is um, you use the services. You have to use a lot of services that are available to you, especially like coming up. Um, there are services like Song Trust that will like collect your money. Well, one you want to make sure that you are registered with all the services that collect money for you, because that's something as an independent artist that you are not going to you're not going to be able to do efficiently, right? So you want to make sure that you're registered with something like Song Trust, because they actually do a lot of the collections from like all the sources that actually use your music. You want to make sure that you're registered with the PRO, a performing rights organization. That's either ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC. You have to be invited to CSAC. And let me pause there and say, registering your music with CSAC does not copyright your music. Okay, does not register your copyright. So if you're trying to register your copyright, you need to do that with the Copyright Office. Registering your music with CSAC just puts it in their database. So if your music is performed publicly, so that means if it's played on the radio, if it's played on television, used in films, or like any type of public performance of the television, films, if it's played like in a venue or a club or something like that, then you're getting money for that. So you just have to you need to register your songs with them, register with the organization like Song Trust, which collects your publishing royalties from all the other like DSPs and all that. Or when I say DSPs, like Spotify and all that fun stuff, Apple Music, and then register with like Sound Exchange, right? Sound Exchange is going to get your Sound Exchange will collect money on the sound recording side if you own any piece of that, right? And again, not your publishing, but they'll collect your money from that. And then you also want to register with the Music Licensing Collective. They collect like a lot of your mechanical licensing as well, and that was actually set up by the Music Modernization Act. So you'll want to register with all four of those, and that way you're kind of getting all your money. And then from like a sync side, from the publishing side and exploiting it, you want to see like what sync organizations are available, what organizations are there that will pitch your music to like television and film. I know like Crosstown has Crosstown Arts and Crosstown Music, so they're like syncing like they're getting a lot of sync placements for a lot of folks. Like I think they just they got some pretty good placements. I know in this last like little trip where music supervisors came down and listened to music in the catalog. So just finding like a place for somebody to exploit that and like use that music is really important as well. What are some ways a songwriter can get a publishing deal with a publishing company? That is, I mean, if you have the direct answer to that, like, you can make a whole bunch of money. But it really is, that's a relationship thing. Like, so either, I mean, you have to pitch your songs. Like, that's really the only way to get a publishing deal. You either pitch your songs to publishers. So that's like, building relationships with publishers. Getting publishing deals is not like an easy thing to do, right? So you either pitch your songs and they'll sign you, or you end up writing a song that gets placed on something, and then you'll kind of catch a publishing company's ear, and then they'll reach out to you and want to give you a publishing deal, or you sign a record or you sign a recording deal like as an artist, or you become a prominent recording artist, and then you have people like give you a publishing deal at that point. If you're a songwriter, like, I mean, as far as like wanting a publishing deal or getting a publishing deal, like that will be beneficial to you. I mean, it's beneficial to you if you want to make money off of your music, yeah, and if you want to get your music out there. But the publishing deal, as we knew it, is not necessarily as lucrative as it used to be. So that's always something to consider when looking for publishing deals. I hope that answers your question there. If you recorded a song but let someone else record it, and at the time of the recording your publishing was not set up, how can you go back and make it right so you can receive payment for the record? Well, what you do is you make sure. Well, you just go. You make sure and set up your publishing. So you set up Song Trust. You set up your PRO account. You set that. You set all that up, and really like there's you just depending on how far back it goes, like you might not be able to receive payment for everything. You'll definitely receive payment for stuff going forward. You'll want to make sure that when you set everything up, like the ISRC codes, which identifies the record, is like matched up with the ISWC code, which is which identifies the actual song. So you can go in and like put those together and make sure that like that's getting tracked, so you get the money from that. The fact of the matter is, like, after a certain period of time, like they'll just any money that's unclaimed, like just kind of gets dispersed like among everything else. So it won't go back, you won't be able to probably won't be able to go like 10 years, right? But I mean, if it's something like a year or so, the other part of that is a lot of these organizations are like 6 months to like a year. They lag like 6 months to a year. So they'll track stuff, but they won't like put out payments. They won't pay out for like a year or so, So I mean, if that's the case, then you'll get your money in most instances. Please break down the reclamation of publishing if it is sold, like the certain amount of years. I'm assuming the certain amount of years that you have to wait. So this is an interesting subject. So generally with publishing, so again, there's publishing and then there's sound recording. So like, because we hear about like Anita Baker is a popular one, right? Who just got her masters back, right? So again, that's the sound recording and not the song. But with publishing, really, like if you sign it away, it's kind of hard to get it back. As far as like reclaiming it, right? Like if you sold it, there might be something in the contract that says after a certain period of years, you can buy it back. Or you might just be able to go and negotiate with the publishing company and offer a certain amount of money to buy it back, but they have no obligation to sell it back to you. So as far as like reclaiming your publishing, it's not necessarily something that has to happen, or they don't necessarily have to sell it back. The thing with sound recordings is a little different. We hear about like all these artists, we call them legacy artists now, right? So like artists who have been around. So at this point, like even if you think about like Stax, like the artists from Stax, right? If the time hasn't passed yet, like there's a certain period of time, I want to say it's like after like 35 years or something, like after you've assigned your record or assigned your recording away, then you can actually reclaim that from the record label. But you have like a very short period of time. I don't do a whole bunch of reclamation. So like I always have to look at the calendar and like figure out like what the time is based on when somebody like signed a contract and when they didn't. But there's like a set period of time where like once it's triggered, you have to reclaim it. Otherwise you can't reclaim it. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, my advice would be to like talk to a lawyer. Like, so, call me or call somebody else and say, hey, I want to reclaim my masters. Like, I recorded a record like 30 years ago or 33 years ago, and I want to reclaim my masters. And then you have to like reclaim it within like a certain period of time, or like you miss the opportunity to reclaim it. But like no company other than that, or other than like some contractual like clause that says you have like, you get the opportunity to buy them back after a certain point of years, or if something was only licensed to somebody for a set amount of years. Other than that, like a company does not have to like sell you your publishing back or anything. So that's kind of the unfortunate, I guess the unfortunate thing about copywriting, the unfortunate thing about songwriting that a lot of folks maybe didn't understand when they were recording, when they were signing a lot of those contracts back in the day, and even now. Is DistroKid comparable to Song Trust? No, they're not. So they do two totally different things. Song Trust collects publishing money, right? They don't distribute anything. All they do is collect publishing money. They don't pitch your songs to anybody or anything like that. DistroKid collects royalties or collects money from streaming services, right? So they're collecting money from they're collecting money from like Spotify plays and all that. And actually, so what DistroKid does is they give you all the money that a record label would get, right? So if you sell a song on iTunes, you get 70 cents for that song. If that song was 99 cents, you'll get 70 cents. It's your responsibility to then pay out the publishing, which is like 9.1 cents, right? To whoever the songwriters are from that 70 cents. Same thing with like streaming, but you'll get the streaming money from DistroKid, and then it's your responsibility to pay out the mechanical royalties from the money you get, right? DistroKid isn't doing that. Songtrust isn't doing that like you're doing that, unless you like dictate as the record company that like the money is sent to Songtrust or the money is sent directly to somebody else. But they're two totally different things. DistroKid puts your music on DSPs or so digital streaming providers. I'm sorry, digital streaming platforms. That's what DistroKid does. Songtrust collects your money from publishing, not from sound recording, but from publishing. That's right. Yep. Barcades did it. So Barcades got the copyright reversion too. So I mean, like, yeah, we're seeing a lot of like legacy artists like from that era now, right? Collecting a lot of their or getting their masters back. The thing with that though is if you get your masters back, you have to know what to do with them. Lupe Fiasco actually did an interview about this. And he was just saying, he had to talk to the record label, like, can I own my masters? Owning your masters is great, but you want to make sure that if you own your masters, you're partnered with somebody who, and I'm assuming this is the case with the Barcades, because I mean, their stuff is still out there. So, like, you want to make sure that you're partnered with somebody who knows, how to make money from your masters. Otherwise, owning your masters is kind of worthless, right? So you want to make sure that if you own your masters, which is a good goal to have, that you're still exploiting your masters and making money from your masters the best way you can. Which is why we see people like after Anita Baker, try to get her masters back, she went back and licensed them right to the same company because they were familiar with the catalog, they were making money with it. She just wanted more control over it. So it's always something to consider. What should an artist look for when signing with the PRO? That kind of like you should look to go with the PRO that fits your personality, fits your style the best, or fits your needs the best. Basically you're looking at, if you're starting out, you're looking at two. You can either join ASCAP or BMI. You can only join one at a time as a songwriter. As a publisher, you can join both, but like the only time you really join both of it is if you were like publishing other people's songs. But as a songwriter, you can only join one. And you want to look for somebody, you want to look at, how they collect. Like, do they collect at the stations or at the venues where, your music is played the most? Technically, they're all supposed to collect at the same places. Technically, the payouts should be about the same. Especially now that they're kind of using that, they kind of have the same database called SongView now, where like a lot of their information is shared. But yeah, like it really depends on like what fits your personality, but like where do you fit, where do you feel the most comfortable? Sometimes they have relationships with publishers. Back in the day, like you would see like, especially like a lot of Memphis songwriters would join BMI because BMI would have like, BMI would like survey a lot of the places or a lot of the radio stations that like BMI would actually, or BMI would survey a lot of the radio stations that like a lot of the like the soul songwriters where their songs were being played. So they would see like a bigger checks from BMI than their counterparts would at ASCAP. But really, at this point, they're kind of all collecting about the same amount and paying out about the same amount. You join CSAC, then maybe you'll see something a little different. You have like deeper relationships with folks there since they're invite only, but again, that's invite only. And then there's GMR, Global Music Rights, which is like really, really small, and a lot of independent folks aren't going to be part of that. Do American PROs pay for international radio? They don't, but they're a partner. So they do. They pay it out. And the way they do that is they're partnered with PROs in other countries. So like ASCAP, which is in America, partners with SOCAN in Canada. So SOCAN collects. So if you write a song, if you're a member of ASCAP, SOCAN is going to collect your money in Canada anytime your music is played on radio there. They'll send it to ASCAP, and ASCAP will pay what SOCAN has paid them, if that makes sense. So all the PROs all have relationships with PROs in other countries. Those PROs in other countries collect that money. They send it to your PRO, and then they distribute it to you. Same thing like Song Trust. They'll do the same thing. Song splits. How does that work on registering and publishing? Great question. The way it works is however y'all decide to split the song is how you like put it into the database. So if you wrote a song with one person and y'all splitting it 50-50, then when you go to BMI's database or when you go to Song Trust, you make sure that it's the same percentages are there. Like that, when you go to register the copyright, you want to make sure that you dictate who owns what percentage there. And then again, like if you're going to BMI, ASCAP, wherever, you put in there, like they have a little spot in there. They have like slots in there where they ask how much or what the percentage is of ownership to each author, to each songwriter, and you just put that percentage in there, and then they take care of the rest. So, and then if you're paying out your publishing yourself, like, so again, if you're on DistroKid and like you're getting that money, then you're like paying out the money to songwriters. You just like divide the publishing portion up accordingly to however the songs are split. So, how do points on a song copyright or correlate to copyright and publishing? So points, so you get points on a record. So just like we're talking about like percentages in publishing, is like you'll get a part of publishing. On the sound recording side, we talk about them as points. So you might hear like a producer will get 4 points on a master, which means that they'll get 4% of the royalties that come in from like the sound recording side, but not from the publishing side. Same thing, like, if you're giving points on the sound recording side to like a session musician who played, or like a featured artist or something like that, that's on the sound recording side, not on the publishing side. The publishing side they can get a percentage of the publishing too, but generally when we talk about points, we're talking about points on the master, like, so points on the actual sound recording. So that's just saying that a point is a percentage point. So 1 point is 1%, 4 points is 4. And that's generally how that works. So points are to the sound recording what like publishing is to the, or what a percentage of publishing is like to the actual song. That makes sense? I hope so. So any other questions there? One of the things that I do want to go back and like kind of reiterate while we're asking for questions. Again, kind of reiterate the whole thing about publishing and performing rights organizations. When you set up your publishing on BMI, or when you set up your publishing on ASCAP, you need to be very clear that, again, one, it does not register your copyright. Two, that's not necessarily setting up your publishing company, right? There are 5 or 6, depending on which right you're looking at, rights associated with owning a copyright in something. Okay, it's the right to distribute, which is the right, to give out to anybody. It's the right to make copies, or the right to reproduce, the right to perform publicly, the right to display publicly, and the right to make derivative works, which is like sampling or interpolation. And then there's a public performance for digital recordings as well. When you set up your publishing company with a PRO or like with ASCAP, the only thing they're collecting money on is that right to publicly perform your song, right? That's the only. So there are 5 other rights, there are 5 other uses that you're not getting paid for from your PRO, and that's where Song Trust comes in and all that. So again, that's why it's important to make sure that you're setting everything up with like all these individual companies. Should artists go with business partners over labels? There's not a one size fits all answer for that, right? I mean, it really depends on what the artist is looking for and what an artist can bear and what kind of infrastructure the artist has. I'll give you a few examples, right? So if I am if I'm like a pop star, or if I'm looking to be a pop star, right, and I'm looking to make the most money I can, and I just want my name to blow up, like you're gonna sign to a label, right? Because they're gonna have the infrastructure to kind of get you where you need to go. And I'll say if you're trying to do that the quickest way possible, right? Now you also might have some artists where they have the patience, and then they also have like the infrastructure there. They have like the team there to like build a company around them. So also with a lot of my clients, a lot of the artists that I take on, we actually work like this. So they'll go with business partners for certain things, or they'll get like investors for certain projects, right? But if you do that, you just have to have like a certain amount of patience, and you have to have a certain amount of know-how on your team, whether that's you learning it as the artist, whether that's like your manager knowing it, whether it's having like a good lawyer on your team who is kind of like who is kind of doing that as well. Again, that's something that I do a lot of, and it's really like it's really important to set up expectations when you're doing that. You want to you have to set goals for whatever the project is you're getting investments on. You also want to, like when you're dealing with business partners, you want to set goals, and you also want to set parameters around what that business partner is going to participate in. And if not setting parameters, at least be clear. Are they if somebody gives you $100,000, right? Is that $100,000 in exchange for that? Are they going to participate in everything you get? Are they going to get a percentage of everything that comes in? Or are they giving you $100,000 for a particular project, for an album or a tour or like a visual album or whatever, right? And then how are we going to limit the amount of money that they get from that? I help a lot of my clients set up what's called a series LLC, so that like they have one business, and then each project that they do is a series, and they can actually they can get different investors for different projects, and that investor will only get paid for like that part of for that project or whatever. So I mean, that's one way to look at it. And then you can also just be like an artist who kind of goes project by project, and they might go with the label and partner with the label for distribution, right, for one project, and then just license that out to them, and then like they'll go for the next project and license that out to another label. So it really just depends on like what you're looking for. Are you looking for ownership, and are you kind of looking for kind of like a long-term, this is how I'm going to make my money, and I want like a lot of creative freedom, so I'm willing to kind of give up a lot of the upfront money. I'm willing to give up a lot of the instant, like the instant fame and all that. Like if so, yeah, it might make sense to like partner with business partners or partner with the label, like, but a short-term partnership. And then if you, the other part of that is like partnering with business partners. There's a difference between like a business partner and like money, right? If an artist is like going with business partners, and they're actually like, they actually have, connections in the music business, or they have something to contribute to the team other than money, that's one thing. If you're partnering with somebody just because they can give you $100,000, right? The danger in like that's cool, but again, the danger in that is them not having, if they're not sophisticated in the music industry, they might have unrealistic expectations, and then that might put you as an artist, that might put you in a situation where, you're being expected to deliver something that is unrealistic. So just be careful about that. And I'm not saying that partnering with um, just investors that's not a bad thing, but you just have to know what you're getting into when you're doing that. I've seen it go both ways. Any insights on distribution? Um, I mean, what's that can go a whole bunch of different ways. Like, yeah, I mean, or speak more on getting songs into TV and film. So, like, to answer the first part about distribution, yeah, I mean, like with distribution, you want to make sure that whatever solution you choose, you're going to have the support you need, I guess, to get where you want to go, right? So, with distribution, there are different levels of distribution. There's the level, well, there's like the record label, right? Where the label is the distributor, right? And they're kind of handling everything. You're kind of getting paid a royalty off of that. On the other end of the spectrum, you have like these services like TuneCore and DistroKid where they're just acting as what's called, they're the aggregator. So they're getting your money, they're getting your music out there and collecting your money. It's up to you to market, right? To market that. Then in between there, they have like a lot of services like a lot of companies like Empire or like Monarch Music, um, really a lot of like the independent labels, what they've started, they have like their traditional distribution deals where they'll give you some money, in exchange for like ownership or like partial ownership or something, or in exchange for like an extended license to your song, or I'm sorry, to your record. So that's something to consider. But they've also started, a lot of these companies have also started doing these other deals where they kind of act like a TuneCore or a DistroKid. I think Selected Hits does something like this, where like they'll give you, they'll distribute they'll distribute your music. They have the distribution network, and then they'll take a percentage of the music, or they'll take a percentage of the royalties, or the income. You get the majority of the income; they'll take a percentage of it. And then like places like Empire or like Monarch, what'll happen is if they see you doing well on that kind of entry level, and AWOL does this too. They see you well doing like that kind of entry level, then like they will they will upstream you and then maybe give you marketing music or marketing money on your next release or something like that. Or maybe they'll help you pay for a video, or maybe they'll help you give you some funds towards a tour or something like that. Or they'll pitch your music along with with their main catalog when they're doing playlist pitches and things like that. On getting your music in film and TV, again, it's really just making sure that you're finding people who like have the right connections. Um, so yeah. In closing, yeah, I mean, if you all have any questions, like please let me know. My email address is alandis@scalefirm.com. It's I don't know if I can put that in the comments, but it's ALANDIS@SCALEFIRM.com. But yeah, just remember, or I'll say the big thing that you need to know is when you create something, you go in owning it 100%. The music industry is run by copyright and contracts. Copyright tells you who owns it. Contract tells you who has the right to use it, right? And how to make and how to make money from it, and how much to pay somebody. So contracts are really just contracts divvying out the the copyright interest and like determining who's making money from the copyright interest and how much they're making. So just be careful before you sign anything away. Always get stuff in writing. So if you're writing with people, the simplest thing you can do is get a split sheet in a session. I know it's not the most convenient thing, or it's not the smoothest thing to do. But yeah, it's something that's simple to do. Get it in writing, and that'll make things a lot easier, down the road. All right. So if that's all, thanks for having me tonight. I really appreciate it. I think you're muted.
So now
There
you can hear me. Thank you so much, Alandis, for chiming in to this much needed Q&A. Like I said, this is a kickoff to our how-to series. And, this is an annual thing that we do at Slim House. And we try to time it when gigs are slowing down. You all are busy in the spring and summer and you're out making money. And then in the fall and winter, it's time to re-up, kind of look at what you've, your wins and your losses of the year and figure out how you need to educate yourself to where a lot of these things won't happen in the future. And so this is where the how-to series comes into play, where we, plan this knowledge for you all. So you can go into 2023 being amazing artists, being much smarter artists and more lucrative artists when it comes to your, to your art, and also retaining ownership of your art as well. And so if we don't have any further questions, again, you can contact Alandis. Where is it? Here. Alandis at scalefirm.com if you want to contact or contract, notice that R in there as well. And and basically get the information that you do need. It is a good idea to secure a lawyer or an attorney that is knowledgeable of the music industry, especially with all of the changes that are taking place, and to help navigate that, as an artist, and again, to maintain the ownership of your creation. So again, thank you all so much for chiming in. I want to say too, let me pull this up here. We have a few more deals coming up here where hold on just 1 second. Let me get this together for you. So here it is. This is what I'm looking for.
But see, the thing is, we don't really think about the future. Because that's our problem. It looks like we don't think about the future. know that he won't live till he says it, but he thinks about his family and his family's family. We don't think like that. That's bad for us. You give it to me.
Well, I think for musicians as well, when they start and so on, you know, you can't think how big it's going to be. You can't.
No, well, think about it. Like me, I've seen so many. I've seen go this way, and when they pass me going in, they pass me coming back, and I've been right in this.